Now, the Bank of Baroda in India intends to release the Gupta family's banking records. The bank has given the family and their associates until mid-March to launch legal action to keep their banking records secret. To discuss this further, we're now joined by our correspondent in New Delhi in India, Neha Poonia. Thanks very much for joining us, Neha. Perhaps you can start by giving us an idea of who the Bank of Baroda is. How big are they in India?
Peter, Bank of Baroda is quite fairly big in India. It's among one of the top 10 banks as far as banking transactions and the volume of banking transactions are concerned. They're primarily based out of the Indian state of Gujarat. The head office is in the state of Vadodara, and it is quite popular with various businesses here.
So have they been able to explain, or have they explained why they're willing to disclose these account details now?
I put that question to them, Peter, and so far I've not heard anything from the Indian officials who work for the Bank of Baroda in the state of Gujarat, but the lawyers who represent Bank of Baroda in South Africa have revealed the reasons why in a statement that was put out about 2 days ago, and they said that their client is of the view that the requested records would reveal evidence of a substantial contravention of the law. So there you have it, an admission from the lawyers that yes, the Bank of Baroda realizes that perhaps there's something amiss in those bank details that they were trying to withhold so far on account of client confidentiality.
Do we know if the Gupta family can challenge this at all?
Yes, I believe so. In fact, this statement that was released by the lawyers of Bank of Baroda very specifically mentions March 21st as the date. I'm told that the period for challenging something like this is usually 30 days in South Africa. But interestingly, Bank of Baroda has given the Gupta family 60 days to challenge this. And it's not just the Gupta family that can. It can be anybody who's associated with them, any aides of theirs who might have a problem with those bank details going public. So yes, they can challenge it up to the 21st of March.
Do we have any indication why the bank has gone in this direction? I would imagine that, handing over clients' records is not something that they do lightly. Are they under the radar of international authorities maybe? Are they under some kind of pressure?
Yes, absolutely. Not here in India yet, though the Democratic Alliance has requested that the Bank of Baroda be probed by India's Reserve Bank. But you asked me the reason. I believe a lot of it had to do with what happened last year when South Africa's Reserve Bank fined Bank of Baroda almost 11 million rand for failing to ensure there was regularity in their banking transactions. And that was one step away from their banking license being suspended. So with that threat looming over their heads, really Bank of Baroda had no choice. Either they would agree with agencies to disclose the details of those bank accounts, or shut shop, entirely in South Africa.
All right, finally, perhaps, you mentioned the Reserve Bank. How strongly regulated are banks in India? Are they all kind of falling into line and towing the international line in terms of doing things properly?
Absolutely. In fact, India is one of the few countries where the Basel norms are very, very strongly implemented. The Reserve Bank of India also is very minutely involved in the running of banks, irrespective of the fact that they are public or private. There are routine meetings held by the Reserve Bank of India to ensure that there is compliance. And we haven't really had many cases like this, but there have been one or two instances of big businessmen who've taken loans from banks and then been unable to repay them. So that's the kind of problem that Indian banks face, the problem of non-performing assets. But there's been nothing like this to this effect in India yet.
All right, Neha, that's where we'll leave it. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. That was our correspondent in New Delhi, Neha Poonia, who's speaking to us about Baroda Bank's intention to make public or available to applicants the records of the controversial Gupta family and their transactions, particularly here in South Africa.